Hello everyone, welcome back to the Varcode tutorials. So in the previous video we have already seen how to set up the MongoDB connection, right? So now we are going to build a test API to check if everything is fine, right? So what you can do, you can come inside your VS Code. After this you can write one comment which is test API, right? So here there is a basic syntax you are going to see to create an API, right? So there are five type of method for creating any API. For example, post, then you will see get method, post method, patch method, right? After this patch method you will see put method, and lastly it will be delete method, right? So what this post method will do, for example, if you want to send some information from the front end part to the database, basically if you want to store some information inside the database, you are going to create an API with the help of post method. Now if you want something from the database, this time you are not going to store anything inside the database, but the information which is already stored inside the database, you are going to fetch that information and show to the user. If you are creating an API like this, you are going to create an API with the get method. Now after this we have this patch and put method. So inside the patch and put method, uh, you are going to update something, right? You are going to update something inside the database. And lastly we have delete method. So whenever you want to delete anything from the database, you are going to use the delete method. So that's all. These are the five method which we are going to see today, right? I can just comment these out, or you can just remove these from here if you don't want these. So first of all we are going to build the test API. So we are going to use the get method. So you can use the get method. Here you need to give the endpoint, right? See, right, for example, if you are on any website, right, and if you want to go, so I can take the example of my own website. If you search for vercode.in, so currently you can see the homepage of this website, right? For example, I want to go on this about us section. So if I want to go in the about us section, what will be our endpoint? This slash about us will be the endpoint, right? So that's what endpoint is. So for example, if we are creating a different APIs, and we need to give a different endpoint, so that whenever user will call that particular endpoint, so only the particular API will be called, right? Okay, so now you can come back to the VS Code. So here we have this endpoint. After this endpoint you need to write async, because we are working with the Node.js, right? And Node.js is a single threaded and asynchronous. So you need to write the async and await keyword to make this as asynchronous, right? Now you can write inside here, you need to write a request and a response. See what this req will do. This is the request keyword. Well, whenever you want to get something from the front end part or the user side, you are going to request something, and whenever you want to return a response, you are going to use the res keyword, which is the response keyword, right? Now make this an arrow function. After making it the arrow function, you can just write res.json. So we are sending something as a JSON format, JavaScript object notation. Now inside here I am going to send a message. You can write the message spelling correctly. So I will send a message that API is working correctly, right? I'm going to send this message, or we can write this M. Yes, now this message spelling is correct. Okay, now you can open your browser, open your new tab, our local host. See, our server is running on local host number 4001, right? And we have an endpoint of slash. So you can write the slash here, and if you click enter, you will see this message that API is working correctly. That means our server is started, and now we can start building the APIs, right? Okay, so come inside your VS Code again, and if you want this API, you can keep this API here, no problem inside this. Or what you can do, you can just comment this API for now. You can comment the API for now. Okay, now you can write one new comment here, API for register route, register route. Now we are going to build an API to register any user inside our database, right? So for registration, as I said, that we are going to send some information from the front end part to the database, right? So we are going to use which method? We are going to use the post method. So it will be app.post, and here you need to give the endpoint as I said you before. So here our endpoint will be slash register. After this you need to create this function asynchronous. So inside this you again pass the req and res. Just remember every time that the sequence of this req and res will be the same. If you write res first and req second, then this api will give you an error, right? So first of all we need to request for something, then we can send the response. That how this works. Okay, so later on we are going to fetch some things. From example, I'm going to fetch the username, I'm going to fetch email, and lastly I'm going to fetch password from the request.body, right? So if you want to fetch anything from the database, you are going to use the request.body to fetch anything from the database, right? Okay, so before moving ahead inside the API, firstly you need to design the schema. See, whenever we are going, if I go inside my MongoDB database again and inside the browse collection, I will give you the example what schema is. Basically, if you go inside the comment section, you can see this name, email, movie ID, text, date. You all know that MongoDB store the data in the form of key and value pair, right? So we need to define the keys in the form of schema. If you want to get some information from the user, you need to give the keys to the MongoDB, that what kind of information is coming from the user, and if that information is required or not, if you want that information as a unique or not, right? So that's why we create a schema. Inside the schema we are going to define some set of rules for the users to give the information, right? Okay, now come inside your VS Code again. For this you can create one new folder. You can create click in this empty space here and click on the new folder icon. Here you need to write models. Create one new folder with the name of models, and inside here you need to create one javascript file with the name of user.js. Inside the user.js, first of all what we need to import is we need to import the mongoose library, because we are going to get the schema function from the mongoose library. So mongoose equal to require mongoose, right? Okay, so now we have imported the mongoose library. Now after the mongoose library you are going to create a new variable which will be the collection name. So this will be the collection name, right? So you can write this new mongoose dot schema. You will find the schema function inside the mongoose library. Now inside here we are going to define the set of rules, or firstly we are going to define the keys, right? So first of all we need a username from the user. So you can write the username. This username will be the key, right? This username will be the key. Now inside here what type of username you want, so you can define the type. So our type will be string, and later on if that username is required or not, right? So you can define one more field with the name of require, right? So inside the require you can make it true, that if the user will submit the form without filling this field, so our MongoDB is going to give an error. Later on we have one more field here which is unique, right? So now what this unique will do, for example in the Gmail, when you enter any email address in the Gmail, right, while registration, so what happens there is if there is already one email registered inside the Gmail database, whatever the email you are writing inside the input field, it will give you an error that the same email is exist, right? So what this will do the same, right? If the user is writing, for example, if I am writing varcode.in, right? If I am writing varcode.in and there is already an email or username with the name of varcode.in, then it will give me an error that there is a similar username is present inside my database. You need to change it. So you can make this property as true. After this username we are going to define the email. All the data types will be the same, right? So you can just copy these three things. I'm not suggest you to copy the these three things if you are writing this schema for the first time, right? Later on we have the password field, and inside the password field we don't make it unique as true. We only going to copy these two field, which is the type string. Our password will be the type string, and the require will be true. After doing this, what you need to do is you need to create one new variable. Now we need to export this user schema inside the index.js to use this user schema, right? So you can write user schema, const user schema equal to mongoose dot model. This will be the model. Inside this model, you are going to write user and your this users. You can copy this user from here, come here and paste it. So now you need to check if both these names will be the same. After this, you are going to use module dot exports equal to user schema, right? So now we have exported our user schema from this file. Now we can use this user schema inside the index.js file. So first of all, what you need to do is you need to go inside the index.js file and you need to import this user schema like we have imported these npm library inside the index.js, right? So you need to write const user schema equal to require. Inside the require, you need to give the path. So basically our path will be dot slash inside the models folder inside the user files, right? We have our user schema inside the users. Or if you don't want to write these things, what you can do, I can just remove these things and call the user schema. So if you call the user schema, it will automatically import it, right? That's how you can do this. Now here, now let's we can continue the registration API. So inside here, first of all, what we need to do is now we are going to open one try and catch block. See, whenever we call any API, either we can get a response or either we can get an error. If we are going to get an error, this will crash our server. So for protecting our server from getting crash, we are going to write all the code inside the try and catch block. So whenever there is an error, it will show us or console.log the error so that we can resolve the error without crashing the server. So what you can write here is, first of all, we can write the code for the error part. So you can write console log error and rest dot status will be 500 dot json and the error will be internal server error, right? Okay, so now we have done this catch block thing. Okay, so now what you need to go, you can go inside the try block and first of all we are going to check if user is filling every field that we wanted, right? So you can write one if statement, if not user sorry, not username or not email or not password. So we are going to return an error, return rest.status 401.json message all details are required, right? So all details are required. Now, if user has already filled these three things, we are moving ahead and we are going to check if this email is already exist inside my database. Because if the email is already exists inside my database, we are not going to register the user, right? We are going to move that user to the login page, or we can show the error for now. So you can write one variable const existing user equal to await. So whenever you are doing any database operation, you need to write this keyword await, right? So Node.js can know this, that you are doing a database operation, so it will wait for some time to get the response from the database. If you are not doing this, then it will just give you the error, right? Here you need to call your user schema dot find one. Now inside this find one, you can pass the email field, right? So when you pass the email here, now it will check this email in all the document which are exist inside my database. If there is some document with the same email that the user is writing, we are going to give him an error. If not, we are going to register. So if existing user, then we are going to return rest.status 401.json message user is already exists, already exist, right? That's how this error will work. Now if both of these conditions will be false, right? So now what we can do, now we can just write const new user. Now we are going to form the new user, right? So you can write const new user equal to await user schema dot create. We are going to call the create function. Inside the create function you are going to pass three things, which is the username and email and password. Sorry, pass you can write the full password. Now as I said, we are not going to store the same password whatever the user is writing in the input field. We are going to hash the password, right? So what you can do, we are using this okay, so I need to import the bcrypt library here. Const bcrypt, you can go on the top and write const bcrypt equal to require bcrypt, right? After doing this, now you can come here and password. After this password you can use this colon here and write bcrypt dot hash sync. This hash sync function will just hash the password, right? So we are going to the pass the password whatever the user is filling inside this field, and we are going to call the bcrypt dot gensalt gensalt sync function here. Okay, so we are going to create a hash password with the 10 digits inside it, right? Okay, so later on we are going to print the res.json new user, right? We are just going to send the new user as a JSON object. Okay, so we are done with this registration API. We are done with the registration API. So you can see the code here. You can pause this video if you have made any error, and you can write the code wherever you have left. So if you're done with the registration API, what you can do, you can open the postman. If you have the postman, that is well and good, or I suggest you can go inside the extension, your own VS Code extension. You can go inside the extension and search for Thunder client. You need to search for Thunder client. You will see this second extension here with the name of Thunder client, right? So this Thunder client will also work similarly as the postman. We don't need to install the postman right now because this application will be really small, right? So we don't need a postman right now. You can just install this Thunder client from here. Currently you can see this uninstall, right? But if you haven't installed this Thunder client, you will see the install option here. So you can install this Thunder client. Then on the left side you will see this logo of the Thunder client. You need to click on this logo. Now you can click on the new request button. Now if you click on the new request button, before sending the request to the registration API, you need to check that your MongoDB server is connected and your server will be running on port number 4001, right? After doing this, you need to click on the new request. As I said, you will see this screen then, right? After seeing this screen, currently it is saying the get method, right? But we have created the API with the post method. You can click on the post method here. Now inside here you need to write the URL. So our server is running on http localhost 4001, right? Slash, and our endpoint is slash register. So you need to write the endpoint here, slash register. Then now you can go inside the body. You can go inside the body, and here you need to write the JSON object. So what will be the JSON object, right? So we have already defined the keys. We have already defined the keys inside the user.js file. You can see the username, email, password. One more thing you need to remember, whatever the key you are passing here, username, email and password, so you need to check if you are writing these spellings same, username, email and password. If you are doing the spelling mistake here, then MongoDB will definitely give you an error, right? Because that data will not get fetched by the MongoDB. So you can go inside the new request, open the curly braces. Inside the curly braces, first of all we are going to pass the username. So let me pass this company's name, where code, right? After the username you can pass the email, and here also let's say where code @gmail.com, right? After this you can okay, so let me use my own email address, pramendra dot shukla @varcode.in, right? After this you can see password. So let's say my password will be 12345, right? So after writing this JSON object, we have created three fields, right? One is the username, one second is the email, third is the password. So I can change this username also to my own name, Pramendra Shukla, right? Now we have written all these three things. Now you can click on the send button and check if there is any error. Yes, you can see that there is a error and it is saying that cannot destructure property username. Okay, so this error may occur. See what happens when we send the request from the front end part to the backend part. Our backend is expecting some JSON format, right? So we need to write the middleware. So we need to write one middleware here at the top. So you can use write app.use here, and inside this you need to write express dot json, right? So now what this middleware will do, this middleware just let our server knows that something in the form of json is coming, so you need to accept it, right? So you can just save the file again, go on the new request, click on the send button. Okay, so here you need to save the file again. Okay, cannot access app before initialization. So you can just cut the code from here, and after this app you can paste the code. Now check if your server is running correctly. You can send, click on the send button again. Now you will see cannot read the property undefined gen salt sync. Okay, so there is an error inside this gen salt sync, right? So we need to resolve this error. So here I'm using this dot, right? Full stop, right? I don't have to use this, I need to use the comma. Now you can just save the file. I guess now this will work. So click on send button, and yes, you will see the username, email and password, right? And the unique ID which is given by the MongoDB. Now if you go inside your MongoDB database again and you refresh this again, you will see the database with the name of test. You can see the database with the name of test, right? So just go on to the users collection. Inside the user collection you will see my data here, and you can see the password is in the hash format. It is not in the format which I have given it, right? It is in the hash format. So that's how we can register any user inside the MongoDB using this API. So that's all for this video. In the next video I'm going to show how to create a login API, right? So thank you so much and take care.